When you hear the name Nikola Tesla, what do you picture? Probably, lightning bolts shooting from some crazy-looking coil, right? But he was so much more than that. Behind the showman, the inventor, was a real humanist, and he had this incredibly detailed scientific master plan for the future of all civilization. And the craziest part? The whole thing didn't start with a machine, it started with a philosophy.
And look, you don't just have to take my word for it. Tesla himself basically told us what he was up to with these words all the way back in 1900. He said he wasn't aiming for some immediate result. Nope, he saw his work like a planter for the future. He was building something for generations he would never even meet. That was his core belief.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll follow Tesla's own blueprint. First, we'll dig into his grand vision for humanity. Then we'll see how he wanted to tackle the big problems: energy, food, and even ending war. After that, we get to the really cool stuff, his dream of a world without wires. And finally, we'll ask why that dream, well, why it never really came to be.
All right, Section 1, a blueprint for humanity. So where does this whole master plan idea even come from? Well, it turns out he laid it all out himself in this incredible essay he wrote back in 1900 called The Problem of Increasing Human Energy. And this thing, it's not just some random paper. It's like the unified theory for his entire life's work, connecting every single one of his inventions to one single goal.
Yeah, this is it. This is the single big idea behind everything. Forget the lightning bolts for a second, the buzzing machines. For Tesla, everything. Alternating current, radio, even robotics. It was all just a means to an end. And that end? To increase the energy of the entire human race.
Okay, Section 2, the problem of energy. So what did he actually mean by human energy? This wasn't some, vague spiritual idea for him. Not at all. He was a physicist, through and through. So he looked at human progress itself like a mechanical system, something you could actually define, measure, and you guessed it, optimize with science.
He literally came up with a physics formula for it. You might even recognize it. It's the classic one for kinetic energy. Human energy equals 1/2 mv squared. Now, m is pretty straightforward. It's the total mass of all of humanity. But v? V is this hypothetical velocity. Think of it like the speed of progress, how fast we're advancing as a civilization. It's our technology, our intelligence, all of it. To Tesla, our progress wasn't a metaphor. It was literal physics.
So if you're Tesla and you've got this formula, the next step is pretty logical, right? How do you increase the total energy? Well, you've got three options. Number 1, you can increase the mass, m. Number 2, you can reduce anything holding us back, what he called retarding forces. And number 3, you increase the things pushing us forward, the accelerating forces. That's it. That three-part plan was his entire blueprint.
All right, Section 3, increasing food, ending war. So let's actually see how he planned to do this, starting with the basics. How do you increase our mass and get rid of the forces dragging us down? Well, his solutions were, let's just say they were a mix of the super practical and the unbelievably radical.
Okay, so for part 1, increasing our mass, he went right for the fundamentals. First, food. He was a big advocate for vegetarianism, saying it was way more efficient. Then health. He knew impure water was a massive killer, so he pushed for universal water sterilization. But his biggest idea? His most ambitious plan was to solve world hunger by, get this, literally pulling fertilizer right out of thin air.
And this wasn't just a theory, not by a long shot. He actually did it. He used his electrical oscillators to create this insane roaring blaze, a 65-foot electrical flame, so powerful it would literally burn the nitrogen right out of the air and turn it into the raw material for fertilizer. Think about that, a potential end to famine, powered by nothing but electricity.
Okay, so that's how you increase mass. Now for part 2, how do you reduce the forces holding us back? For Tesla, the answer was obvious. The single greatest retarding force, the biggest drain on human energy, was organized warfare. He saw conflict as just a total waste, and believed that if humanity was ever going to move forward, we had to solve the problem of war first.
So, the million-dollar question, how do you actually end war? Tesla's solution was, wow, it was seriously provocative and so far ahead of its time. He basically said, look, as long as people are fighting people, there's always going to be that passion, that drive for bloodshed. His solution, you have to take humans out of the equation altogether. Machine must fight machine.
And he didn't just talk about it, he built it. Back in 1898, he showed off this thing called the teleautomaton. It was one of the world's first remote-controlled boats. He said it had a borrowed mind from the operator, but then he made this eerie prediction. He said a day would come when he could build an automaton with its own mind, one that could act intelligently on its own. We're talking about the birth of drones, robotics, even the very idea of AI, all coming from this desire to end war.
All right, Section 4, a world without wires. So we've got a plan to feed humanity and a plan to end war. That brings us to the third and final piece of his blueprint, increasing that accelerating force. And for Tesla, what was that force? It was simple: work. The power of humanity to get things done on a global scale.
The big problem, though, was how do you efficiently deliver power to drive all that work? How do you get energy everywhere on the planet? Well, as it happens, Tesla had the perfect tools for the job. His alternating current system was perfect for sending power over huge distances, and his most famous invention, the Tesla coil, was the key to unlocking wireless power. These weren't just cool gadgets, they were the instruments for his final act.
And this was it, the grand experiment, the Wardenclyffe Tower. I mean, look at this thing. It was so much more than a radio tower. It was the physical prototype for his world wireless system, a system designed to connect and power the entire planet. No wires needed. This was supposed to be the culmination of his entire life's work.
I mean, just look at what this world system promised to do. A full century before the internet, he was talking about worldwide telegraphy and telephony, global news distribution, a synchronized clock for the whole planet, secure private communications, transmitting pictures and text. It's basically the internet. But he had one more feature that we still don't have: worldwide wireless power transmission.
Okay, Section 5, the unfinished dream. So, let's recap. He had the blueprint. He had the tools. He had a vision that pretty much predicted our modern world with mind-blowing accuracy. And all of that, it just brings us to one last really big question.
So why don't we live in Tesla's wireless world? Why isn't there a tower like this outside of your city, beaming power and information right to you? The vision was there, the science was sound, so what went wrong?
You know, the answer is almost tragic. It's just so simple. The dream didn't die because the science failed. It died because it ran out of money. That's it. The project was just too big, too far ahead of its time. Investors just didn't get it. And when his main backer pulled his funding, that was it. The Grand Tower was just left there. A skeleton of a future that never happened.
You see, Tesla saw the Earth itself as something special. Not just a rock we live on, but as one single vast conductor, a giant resonator that could connect everyone. He had the blueprint to use it. And now, a century later, as we're busy stringing our own global network together with miles of cables and fleets of satellites, it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What did we lose when we let that dream die? What would our world look like today if we had just followed his blueprint?